doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.
So, Devraj, I'd just like to call on you. And for those who don't know, Devraj is one of the real pioneers based out of Europe that is really driving RegTech ecosystems and leveraging, all of that sort of pent up next generational intellectual capital that resides within universities and the youth generation. So Devraj, I'd like to really get your views initially on the role that you believe academia can play and assist us on the continent to lay that strong foundational RegTech industry base. And then also I'd like you to please address this issue of, just sharing your insights. We want to avoid some of the mistakes that you may have made or some of the lessons that you learned in building an ecosystem, around the RegTech space. So if you could just share with us some suggestions on the role that you think academia can play in establishing a solid foundation for RegTech in Africa, and then just share with us some of your experiences building your RegTech ecosystem, within your constituency, and some of the things that you would recommend we do, and some of the lessons that you've learned that you would recommend that we do not. Over to you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Great pleasure to be here, and thank you again for the opportunity. And thank you for the introduction. Yes, some of it is even true. So I have to say,
right, don't you?
And the thing that Hubert speaks to is so a little bit of background to all of this. Within Scotland, there is this effort to try to create an overall fintech ecosystem. And that has been pioneered by a number of organizations within Scotland, most notably FinTech Scotland. And sort of the tireless efforts of FinTech Scotland have really brought this notion of ecosystem to the fore. Now, where sort of Strathclyde and I come in is to try to specialize that a little into the context of RegTech. And to sort of go to Hubert's question, so what is the role of academia? And this is something that we've been talking about quite a bit. Maybe could I summarize it in 2 words? Honest broker.
Okay.
So you stand between, as an honest broker between, and I'll sort of try to answer both questions at the same time. So to the second question of what have we learned? So the experiences of the Scottish ecosystem are that, and I think this is probably likely to be universal, that on the one side, there are the smaller companies, the fintechs and the regtechs, and on the other side are the larger organizations. Now, we primarily look at financial service organizations, but doesn't have to be that. Any data-driven organization, so that spans a fairly wide range. If I can grossly oversimplify, the basic learning has been, and this I think is fairly obvious at one level, the smaller companies tend to be simpler in organization, but much more innovative in what they do, whereas the larger organizations tend to be much more complex, and they tend to be perhaps less innovative. So what then is the role of sort of academia is to basically bridge this divide. So in the specific, so again, to make it quite specific to RegTech, one of the things we try to do is try to step in there and bridge that divide. Now, this is a particularly difficult task. So you try to sort of address, so there are 2 essential questions that you can, or 2 essential issues that you can try to address. On perhaps the fintech side or the RegTech side, the smaller company side, you can try to spur innovation. You can try to understand what their innovative models are. And then on the other side, the side of the larger companies, try to identify the challenges, the institutional challenges that they face. And the role of the honest broker then becomes trying to bring those 2 together. Okay, so for example, how could you go about doing this? So what is a key attribute of the honest broker in all of this? The notion of disinterestedness. They are neutral in that they are trying to understand the problem as holistically as possible, not from a specific perspective, from a disinterested perspective, and as opposed to perhaps a more commercial organization who is trying to analyze it for a particular motive. Here you're trying to take a holistic view on the problem. And so in the specific issue of RegTech, it then comes down to understanding innovation on one side, understanding challenges on the other, and trying to bring them together. So what can academia itself, in addition to that, what can it do? So I think following on from that, its most crucial role would be in skills provision. Okay, so once you've been able, the honest broker has been able to understand on the one side the innovation and on the other side the challenges, now formulate a skills provision package. And this, for example, is something that Mark will talk much more about. So it doesn't have to come exclusively from academia. You harness all of the players in that ecosystem ideally to come together with this basic skills package. And when I say skills, I mean it's not directed at a single level. Skills are across the board. This starts from the C-suite going down to entry-level jobs. So you're saying, maybe I should have started at this. So maybe if I can just quickly define RegTech, so it's useful to have a definition. So if you define RegTech as a use of technology and data analytics to make compliance and risk management, regulation, compliance and risk management better, cheaper, and more efficient, okay? Then you understand that you're dealing with a disruptive phenomena. So you're dealing with a disruptive phenomena, which is likely to change the very architecture of how things have been done. So you use this sort of challenges and innovation framework to try to understand that in a disinterested manner. And then you try to create a skills package based on that. So very simply, much more concretely, in RegTech, what will the jobs of the future look like? These are what the jobs of the future look like. So what would people in RegTech, what sort of skills would they need to have? And then start with that and then sort of map it into sort of existing. So that's I think the bulk of it. So what have we learned? We've only just begun this. We've been doing this for we've been doing the whole fintech thing for about a year and a half now, but the RegTech specialization has only started maybe 3 or 4 months. What we've learned is this is a long game. Okay, so this is a long game because it's a word that, I go back to a word that was used in Alistair's presentation. What is crucial in all of this is building trust. Building a community of trust. Because the knowledge required to implement this sort of new architecture of RegTech, if you will, does not reside with any single individual, certainly not any single group of individuals. It resides within that entire extended community. And if it has to succeed, it has to mean that the community has to come together around what you might call a common minimum program, at least, to try to evolve. And I think this echoes a lot of the things that Alistair was saying in his presentation. It's just perhaps more abstract. So he was giving some very concrete examples of that. All I would say is I'm sort of just approaching this from a more abstract setting. And academia has a key role to play because disinterestedness, as I said, is crucial in all of this. Because that is a characteristic that can win the trust of all the players in the ecosystem. But this is a long process. So you need to try to divide it into, you need to have sort of staging posts and clear milestones. But it's also an emergent phenomena, which means that you can start somewhere, you may intend to go somewhere, you may end up somewhere quite different. So, that's sort of been the lesson so far.
Doing business in Africa, you can't afford to be without Africa Investor.